Gerald, Xinglat. A glimmer of light pierced through my room, and my eyes closed instinctively as I moaned in clear discontent. Gerald, wake up. On most days, it would be the first words that I hear. Turning to the clock, I look at the time, 7:45, and think to myself, it takes 10 minutes to wash, 5 minutes to eat, and 12 more minutes to get to class. Since school starts at 8:20, I don't have to get up for another 8 minutes. And thus, I envelop myself back into the warm covers of my blanket. I lived life with no real sense of purpose. In fact, much of my day consisted of my cherished activity of catching Z's. So, who would have thought that my inspiration would come from a man who almost never slept? Ding, ding, ding. That monotonous sound echoed in the air as I shuffled my feet across the scorching pavement, beads of sweat trickling down my neck. 5, 6, 7, tendu, halt. The monotonous sound stopped, and the air was filled with silence. No, suspense. We all stood there awaiting the words of our supreme leader, Mr. Spencer. Well, to an unfamiliar eye, our supreme leader was just some old, wrinkle-faced man with a terrible lack of smile muscles. But for us marchers, his words were absolute. Dismissed. We'll start learning new drill tomorrow. I didn't expect my first day of high school to be this grueling. Maybe it was just because I had spent most of my summer under the comforts of my bed. Or maybe it was the idea that school didn't really start until the second day. In any case, this experience was like no other. 8 hours a week and a football game to boot. Was your average 14-year-old supposed to handle this on top of hours of schoolwork? Apparently not. Just a week in, I asked the director if I could resign from a varsity marching position. The old man's face was cold as his mouth moved. If you are serious, return this form to me by Friday. And with that, he nodded me towards the exit. As I opened the door, I heard his voice again. Take a look around you before we come back. The door shut. Take a look around you? In the beginning, I merely scoffed at my director's statement, thinking he was going senile. But as the days passed, his words rang in my head and I began to notice things. The grass on the sidewalk doesn't just trim itself. Our band uniforms can't just organize themselves. The community garden didn't just become beautiful by itself. It was the people around us that had to do those tasks. And when I realized these things that I had took for granted, a new perspective emerged. Mr. Spencer wasn't just some senile old man. He was a man who had noticed these things a long time ago. While Mr. Spencer may no longer be with us, I hope to embody his quote. There are so many people in our world. It just takes a quick glance around us to find those we can serve and those who are already serving. I hope to keep looking around myself in order to serve those who have yet to be seen. Rays of early morning light shine through the windows as I rush down the stairs, my bare feet muffled by the soft matted floor. Oh, look who's awake, my mom says jokingly, referring to my past self of dawdling in the bed. Gerald, Xinglat. I no longer needed to hear these 3 words echo through the house. Instead, I can barely stay in bed as I wait eagerly for the infinite potentials of the day ahead. Oh, and marching band? Well, let's just say that I never returned the form. So, how did I go about writing this essay? Well, the first thing I did was read a lot of sample essays online, and you can pretty much find them anywhere if you just do a quick Google search. But by doing this, I kind of got a feel of how the essay should be written, and what kind of things makes an essay good and what kind of things makes an essay bad. And when I was reading these essays, it felt like a lot of the writers had some kind of life-changing moment that most people that age wouldn't experience. Like for me, I've never had any traumatizing events, nor did I go anywhere significant. Of course, if you did experience something life-changing, then definitely write about it. But for most people, the essay portion should be used to expand on a certain aspect of yourself. And as you've probably seen from our previous video, I try to center my application around band, which was the extracurricular activity that I spent the most time on. So I thought it would be really impactful to kind of show the readers that I almost quit something that defined my entire application. Then I kind of just weave that premise into a moral, which I still follow to this day. Okay, before I read my responses to the Rice application prompts, I do want to say that it's incredibly helpful to start as early as possible. Like, in my experience, your essay always sounds worse the second time you read it. So for me, I kind of started it in the late summer and just went back to it every now and then before I submitted my application. Alright, now to the prompts. Oh, and for those who don't know yet, I applied as a bioengineering major, which is why a lot of my activities and my essays talk about medical related stuff. An aroma of disinfectant filled my nostrils as the elevator door opened. Like clockwork, I headed towards Tucker, the head technician, for the daily checkups. I didn't really consider my time at fake hospital name to be work. Instead, it was an incredible learning experience. I would talk with nurses about organizing and assessing medical documents. I would shadow doctors with their work and gain real-life experience. I would also interact with a multitude of patients every single day. Even during the times when all I did was clean the medical equipment, I was able to make it a learning experience. The technicians would talk about their work and how they operated each and every machine I touched. Every day the clock would point at 2, signaling my time to leave. And every day I would wish that I could stay. Technology. The world of technology is always advancing and improving, always becoming more beneficial to society. But technology doesn't just evolve on its own. It's the collective minds of scientists, researchers, and engineers that move us toward a more advanced society. I wish to be part of this frontier and further improve the lives of many. With the prevalence of technology ever increasing, more and more people will be affected by machines. Whether it's in the medical world, the business world, or in our own personal world, I hope to always be working towards a brighter future. This is an incredible field, and to be able to be a part of that is incredible in and of itself. The AC hummed as I sat at my desk staring blankly at my computer. I didn't know how to start my college search, so like many other students, I simply typed best universities into Google. Well-known schools such as Harvard, Stanford, and Princeton came up along with a plethora of other options. Begrudgingly, I began to read over each and every school on the list. While I wouldn't mind going to any of the top schools, there was one school that seemed to click with me. That was Rice. Why? Well, my mind centered on how the school boasts best quality of student life, ranks extremely high in the engineering field, and is even located in Texas, my home state. It felt like a match made in heaven, and I thought that I couldn't have gotten any better. Then I visited the campus. I was stunned by the beauty of the buildings and the tranquility of the environment. The campus was intimate, yet felt very free and open. All of this juxtaposed with the busy city life of Houston that would never cease to bore me. Thinking that I couldn't get enough of Rice, I attended an information seminar. My perception of Rice only got better as I learned about the opportunities that were offered and the ability for undergraduates to work alongside professors. How could I go anywhere else? This is where I belong. For these types of questions, it's easiest just to research specific types of characteristics that your school has, and then say you like them. And for this final question, I knew that my readers could probably tell that I lived a pretty normal life, so instead what I tried to do was embrace that and turn it into something positive. Being born in America and living most of my life in a sheltered community, away from the imperfections of reality, much of my life will be considered ordinary by the general populace. However, that doesn't exclude me from having unique qualities that define my personal identity. While I may not have some awe-inspiring narrative, my parents definitely did with their almost rags-to-riches-like journey of them starting off as impoverished children and working their way up to the land of the free. And in doing so, I was raised surrounded by their idea of working hard and, of course, the culture of their homeland. The way my parents raised me was more hands-off than most Asian parents. Needless to say, there was the usual routine to focus on your studies and get good grades, but that wasn't all they emphasized. They would encourage me to explore on my own and to find pleasure in things that we had instead of wishing for things that we didn't. They would also promote self-improvement and encourage me to live beyond the expectations of others. Because of that, I had adopted the idea of turning my parents' flaws into my strengths. For instance, being raised in China for most of their early lives, my parents were not very adept at communicating in English. Thus, one of my strengths would be to excel in the English language. I would spend hours working on grammar books and language books until my English became even better than my Chinese. It wasn't all just work though. In accordance with my Asian heritage, my family would celebrate traditional Chinese holidays such as Chinese New Year, the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the Lantern Festival. Over the course of a few years, we started integrating some American traditions into our lives as well. The classics included Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, which was my favorite holiday. Of course, my parents would always stress about the underlying importance of these traditions. As cliché as it may sound, these holidays weren't just about the gifts or the food. They were about appreciating others and caring for the people around you. While on the outside, my life may be considered ordinary, the rich Chinese culture and distinct influence that my parents had brought upon me are all quite unique. The messages that I was given since birth still rings in my ear today. I see life as a challenge needing a solution. But more than that, I see it as a time to bring about the best in everyone. After all, isn't it easier to find solutions with the help of others? And there you have it. Hopefully y'all have found something in this series that proved to be interesting or useful. Obviously, if you have any questions, then feel free to email me or ask me through the comments down below. With school starting again, I don't know if I can answer everything, but I will try my best. Finally, for the third time, I'd say good luck to all of those hearing back on college applications. And for those non-seniors out there, Your time's coming up.